prep better, prep harder, and you will succeed. Peace. What's going on YouTube? Today I have a video where I'm going to discuss some of the ins and outs of reading comprehension strategy. Now, a lot of the students that I work with and a lot of students on my social media channels ask me, Nick, please do a video on reading comp strategy. I don't get it, I'm struggling with it. What can I do? And I want to do this in context of the SAT and ACT. I'm going to discuss both. I want to break down exactly how to go about this section of the test. And I want to kind of go over some of the overlooked aspects of reading comprehension. Everyone has some of the basics down. I would say 99% of the students I meet have the appropriate reading level to do well on the reading comp, but not all of them do. Today I want to discuss some of the little known secrets to how certain people do well and others kind of just fall short. So let's get into it. Reading comp is definitely an enigma. I think a lot of students feel like reading comp is one of those things that they just can't get. A lot of students say to me, Nick, my reading speed is too slow. I can't finish. I understand the passages, but I still get all the questions wrong. I don't understand the passages. I've heard it all. And I think at the end of the day, like I said earlier in the video, 99% of the students I've met have the reading skill and the reading level to do well enough on the test, but they just fall short on the strategy component. So let's go over one thing, right? A lot of students out there, a lot of tutors talk about, reading the questions first. I think that'd be topic number one would be, should I read the questions first? My answer is, if you're taking the ACT, you definitely do not want to read the questions first. Now, there's one person out there who's a speed reader who's going to say, okay, Nick, I can read the questions first and get it done and it helps me. Okay, that's great. I'm not talking about one person that you know. I'm talking about on average, the average student, above average student, the high achieving student, the students that's struggling. It is a waste of time on the ACT, especially to read the questions first. Now, SAT, slightly different story, but I still feel if I was personally doing the test, I would not read the questions first, and let me explain why. The questions are the same questions every single time. They're just the same questions over and over and over again in all the sections. So why would you need to read them first if you already know what they are? Good point, Nick. I know. Thank you. But what I would say is, all jokes aside, it just doesn't achieve that much. Maybe if you have ample time and it does not affect time management, go for it. If it makes you happy, if you feel it helps you, I have absolutely no problem with it. But if it results in running out of time and it doesn't really help you, you probably should forego reading the questions first. Now, look, if you're taking a state standardized test or you're doing a school exam and you want to do that and that helps you kind of frame your mind to what's going on, great, go for it. You don't run out of time, time's not an issue, do it. SAT, ACT, time is an issue, so number one, wanted to clear that up. I would not recommend reading the questions first. You're going to have a main point question. You're going to have a tone question. You're going to have line references, vocabulary, so on and so forth. The questions are just very clear, like what they're going to be. So reading them, not that helpful, but that's my opinion. Take it or leave it. All right, number two, for both tests, you really have to understand the time structure of the exam. They do make these watches. They do help you get through the test. I'll put some links below for the SAT and ACT watch. These can help you manage your time. They give you a little visual aid, so to speak, and they are legal for the exam. You could just use the regular old analog watch. That works too. Also looks cooler than this. This, not cool, cool, not cool, cool. But my point is, you have to pay attention to the time. And that's not just important for students that run out of time, that's important for all students to pace yourself and make sure that you're appropriately analyzing and digesting all of the information. So how much time do you have? So you have 8 minutes and 45 seconds per passage on the ACT, and you have 13 minutes per passage on the SAT. If you get time and a half, just multiply that by 1.5. If you get double time, multiply by 2, whatever, right? Point is, you have a limited time, especially on the ACT. All right, guys, so you have the basics down. Nick, I got the basics. I understand the time. I understand, not to read the questions first, but what should I do? Well, my personal approach is to read the passage thoroughly and keep certain things in mind while you're reading. But those things differ depending on the type of passage, right? And that's another huge thing. I think one of the biggest things that students miss out on, and it kills me because students are instructed by a lot of people to just go through all 4 passages or all 5 passages the same way. That's just so wrong. Just unbelievably wrong. Unbelievably wrong. Passage 1 is the prose fiction passage on both tests. Prose fiction is like taking a novel and just, ripping a page out of it and putting it on the ACT or the SAT. That's a very different thing than something about turtles or dolphins or economics or sociology or Ben Franklin, whatever, right? Those things are factual. Ben Franklin was a real person. Believe it or not, he was real. Any kind of other factual thing is a real passage. The prose fiction passage about a family growing their wheat crops to pay for their daughter's college, it could be real, but it's not, right? It's not real. So they're testing a different part of your brain. Now, you're probably asking me, Nick, okay, well, what part of the brain is that? Well, they're testing more of your emotional intelligence, if you believe it or not. On the prose fiction passage, they're including a lot of things about feelings and emotions. So the characters have feelings, right? They're sad, they're happy, they're being criticized, they're upset, they're nervous, they're anxious, so on and so forth. You can think of a lot of the famous SAT and ACT passages and think about the different emotions involved. If you think about SAT Test 1, Akira, anyone knows what that is? If you haven't, go look at SAT Test 1. He's trying to get married, he's trying to wife up, and he's nervous that he messed it up. He's in Japan in like the 1920s or something like that, and there's a certain way to go about it. He's not wealthy, his potential fiance is wealthy, and he's not going about the traditions the right way. Why does that matter? Because he has a feeling about how things went. The mother has a feeling about how things went. The daughter has a feeling about how things went. The feelings dictate the answers, the correct answers, right? So you have to pay attention to feelings and emotions in the first passage. No one thinks about that, right? So, point number 2 is for certain types of passages, you have to use a different part of your brain. Now, let's move on to the other types of passages, right? The factual passages. Okay, so we're doing feeling and emotion for the first passage. What are we doing for all the other ones? Well, for those, it's a little bit more straightforward, right? We have the topic, the main point, and the tone, right? The tone is where people really miss out. Most students can get the topic and the main point. I read this, it's about dolphins. We want to save their habitat. Great, who cares, right? That is going to get you maybe 6 out of 10, right? 6 out of 10 answers correct. That's not what you're looking for, right? You want that 8, 9, 10 out of 10. So how do we get that? We have to look forward towards things such as the tone, right? How does the author feel about dolphins' habitats being destroyed? How does the author feel about the fishermen that are destroying their habitats or their nets? How does the author feel, or what does the author think about new legislation that's improving the outcomes of dolphins' habitats? I mean, these are all important things that will dictate the answers to the questions. If the question asks you something to the effect of like, which one would the author agree with, that's going to be a hard question. Or make an inference, also going to be a hard question. If you understand the tone of the passage and the tone of what's going on, then you're going to be able to make that inference. If not, you're going to struggle, right? Also, something as simple as picking between the answer choices gives a lot of students difficulty. Now, why is that hard? Students tell me, Nick, all of the answers sound the same. What do I do? Well, that's a great question. They do all sound the same, but they are different. And I promise you they are, or else the test makes no sense. So how are they different? Well, there's going to be one word, one phrase, one little piece that is going to differ, and that is the piece that makes either the answer correct or the answer incorrect, right? And that is the master skill of reading comprehension, be able to look at individual words and say, is that actually indicative of what the passage said? Moving on to a few other finer points. A lot of students struggle with what we call global questions. Global questions are the questions that, basically ask you about the passage as a whole. Something like, what's the main point, right? That's just hard to answer immediately after reading the passage. Because you have limited time, they put those questions first, right? A lot of times, question number 1, what's the main point of the passage? Seems like a very obvious and very acceptable first question, but it's a trick, right? And it's a trick because you don't have enough time to read a passage in 3 minutes, digest it, and then answer a main point question, right? You have to take that one, put it aside, and answer it later, right? Because once you've done the other questions, you gain more knowledge about the passage, you gain more understanding, and you digest more of it. And then you are therefore able to answer the main point question. Those are some basic tips on how to improve your reading comprehension performance. Number 1, understand the timing structure of the exam. Number 2, understand that the passages are of different types. And number 3, understand that it's really important to focus on individual words in the questions and answer choices. If you can do those things, you should be able to understand the reading comp better. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Subscribe below for more content. We'll be dropping more SAT, ACT lessons in the near future. And hit that like button, comment below what you want. I did this video based on a comment from someone in a prior video. So I really appreciate the comments, guys. And once again, take care of yourself, stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the school year. You know my motto, prep better, prep harder, and you will succeed. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.